right. We are delighted to have the presidential candidate and independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders, is with us, as he has been many times on our show, never under such circumstances. Bernie, you are a guy who has seen a lot of things. Where do you place this crisis in American history?
Never in my lifetime, Bill. What we're looking at now is absolutely unprecedented. We're looking at a pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen in 100 years. We're looking at an economic collapse that may end up being worse than the Great Depression, with 30, 40 million people becoming unemployed in the next number of months. So it's unprecedented in our lifetimes, that's for sure.
And what would you do right now if you were the president?
This is exactly what I would do. The main point is that we have to prevent a breakdown in the entire system. That's how dangerous it is right now. It is much easier to maintain the system than to fix it after it is broken. What does that mean? From an economic point of view, it means that we tell every worker in America, you will continue to get your paycheck. We know you're not working. We know you're at home. You know your business that you're working for is not functioning. But guess what? We're going to do what the UK is doing, what Denmark is doing, what Norway is doing, what France is doing. You will continue to receive 100% of your paycheck. Number two, what we have got to do is guarantee that all people in America during the crisis get the health care they need without out-of-pocket expense. It is pretty crazy to say to people, as the last stimulus package did, that you can get your coronavirus test, government pays for that, but if you're sick and go to the hospital, you have to pay for that out of your own pocket. Number three, what we have to do is protect our healthcare system right now. We need to use the Defense Production Act to tell the private sector, who will be well compensated, they must produce the masks, the gowns, the gloves, the ventilators that the healthcare system requires. Also, if we're ever going to get back to normal, we're going to need a new level of testing that we have never seen before. And I think we can do it, but we have to invest in it so that it says to Bill Maher, Bill, you have been tested right now instantaneously. You are not spreading the virus. You are not going to be susceptible to the virus. You can go into a work environment with other people who are clean as well. So we need to invest very heavily in testing. We also need to provide substantial help to federal, to state and local governments, because they are running out of money. We have helped them in the last stimulus package. We've got to do more in the next stimulus package, which we are working on right now, because if the cops are not being paid, the EMT people are not being paid, you're going to have a breakdown in the system. And we have also got to protect working families all over this country who cannot afford right now to pay their rent, their mortgages, their student loans, their auto loans, and so forth, and put a freeze on those type of payments. So bottom line is, Bill, in my view, we are in an unprecedented moment in American history. We have got to act in an unprecedented way. And I am working with other senators and members of Congress on what will be an unprecedented piece of legislation to try to save this country in such a difficult moment.
Okay, I mean, you mentioned getting 100% of your paycheck. The criticism of you has often been that you are promising money that the government could not possibly come up with. How long can the government do that? How can we just keep printing money? Isn't that a recipe for economic disaster down the road?
Well, I think, Bill, by not preventing a crisis, you end up saving money and easing a whole lot of pain in this country. I don't think you have an alternative. We are looking at some 30 or 40 million people over a period of months, over a period maybe of 3-4 months, losing their jobs. And if we do not protect those people, you're going to see a a collapse of the economy, and it will take us more money to put it back together. And what I'm suggesting, by the way, is largely what is already going on in the UK, Germany, Norway, Denmark, and other countries. So it's not a kind of a new idea. And by the way, we put that provision into the recent stimulus bill for 2 million workers in the airline industry. While the airline industry is virtually shut down, those workers will continue to get 100% of their paycheck and their health care, which is what we should be doing. So, Bill, I'm not suggesting to you that this is not an expensive proposition. I am suggesting to you that the alternative is worse.
I find one of the most galling parts of this is that the president is favoring certain states over the others. Governors who are nice to him, as he calls it, get a lot of attention and all the equipment they want. To me, this is even more of an impeachable offense than what he did with Ukraine or Russia. How do you stop a president who is blatantly not the president of every state equally? How do you stop a president who sends aid to Florida, for example, because he likes the governor there, but not here to California or Illinois or Massachusetts?
It is literally beyond comprehension. I mean, we have a president who has done so much harm in this entire process, who has downplayed the crisis from day one, which will cost us, in his actions or inactions, in not listening to the scientists and spouting off ridiculous ideas, is in fact going to cost the lives of many thousands of Americans. But to answer your question, Congress has got to step up to the plate and step up big time. And I will tell you what else concerns me. The worst part of this $2 trillion stimulus package that was passed last week, and I voted for it, but the worst part of it was $500 billion going to the president to allocate to corporate America, with nowhere near the kind of strings attached and accountability that should have been required. And now he is saying, hey, I don't really care about accountability at all. I'll do what I want. And to pick up on your point, if you think that during a campaign, you're not going to see a lot of money from the Trump administration going to battleground states, to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, you would be grossly underestimating the venality of this president. So these are issues we're going to have to stay on and work very hard to correct.
Okay. So during the campaign, you and your rivals debated many times who has the better health care plan. But my point has always been that one thing I never hear from a politician is saying to the American people, no matter what health care plan we have, it's not going to work unless you take more responsibility for your own personal health. One reason we're in the mess we're in is because Americans are not very healthy to begin with. I know this is under the category of never going to happen, but if I was president, I would institute a Manhattan Project for getting our immune systems in better shape. And part of that is suggesting very strongly that people eat better food and less of it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, this is exactly what the federal government should be doing, what the Surgeon General should be doing. Look, in the long run, I mean, as you know, we have seen a decline in life expectancy, I think, for 3 out of the last 4 years. Major crises with diabetes, with obesity, with opioid addiction, with alcoholism, with suicide. I mean, we have many, many problems. And one of the areas that concerns me very much is you have the food industry selling absolute garbage to kids with all kinds of sugar and everything else in it. So what we need is a government to work hard in terms of disease prevention. It's not just food. It is exercise. It is doing a lot better in terms of mental health than we do right now. So disease prevention is obviously the way to create a happier, more fulfilled society, and also to save a hell of a lot of money if we don't have to deal with diabetes and obesity and heart disease and all of the illnesses caused by poor diets and other things.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. All right, last question. It's a question I've asked other candidates before. I don't seem to ever get a satisfactory answer, but I'm hopeful for you. And that is this. I've been saying for a number of years that if Trump loses the election, he's not going to leave. Now I notice a lot of people are talking about this very issue. If you are elected president and Trump gets out there and says, well, there were irregularities and it was rigged and it was this and it was that, and I'm not going anywhere until we find out what's going on, what do you do?
Well, you mobilize the American people in a way that they have never been mobilized before, to essentially remind this president that whether he likes it or not, we live in a democracy, and that the majority of the American people, through the electoral process, will determine who the next president is. So, what you're describing is a nightmarish scenario with regard to democracy in America. Do I think you're crazy and off the wall? I suspect not. But I think we have to make it clear from now on throughout the campaign and the day after he loses, that if he loses this election, he will be out of office and replaced by the new president.
Well, I am crazy and off the wall, but I'm always happy when you join us on our show, even if it's remotely. Stay healthy out there, Senator. Good luck with the campaign, and I hope to see you in person someday soon.
Okay, you take care as well, Bill.
Thank you, Bernie.